G'day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Draw with Jazza. I'm Jazza, and I'm here with the amazing SYCRA from the YouTube channel. Is it just slash SYCRA?
Yeah.
Cool.
G'day, ladies and gentlemen. This is SYCRA, and I'm from the YouTube channel SYCRA. Awesome. And I don't know what's happened to my voice. I was trying to mimic Jazza, but it didn't
Irish for some reason.
I've become Irish.
So where are you from? Let's learn a little bit about you. I know you're from Romania because I'm up at 6 in the morning. So,
well, I'm in Romania. I don't know if I'm from Romania.
Where are you from?
I was born in England, and then I moved to Canada, Vancouver, and now I'm in Bucharest, and you know.
Wow, that's a bit of a hop around, eh? So we're going to be doing a bit of a quid pro quo. Did I say that right? Format today.
You did.
We figured it'd be fun to kind of jump back and forth a bit. So I ask, you ask, a little give and take, and it should be fun. So your turn. Quid pro quo, SYCRA.
Okay. So you have done so many different things, the voice acting and the art and whatever. Okay, I shouldn't say and whatever, because that doesn't work. All right. This is weird, because I thought I was... Okay. So Jazza, you're accomplished in so many different disciplines. You do art.
Accomplished.
You do music. Yeah, see, he can do voices. You see? and so my question to you is, why did you decide on art? Is this your main thing, and why is it this and not something else when you could have done something else?
It has at times been other things. When I was in my late teens, I kind of jumped back and forth actually between wanting to be a musician and wanting to be a director, and I've kind of fallen into what I'm doing just because at the time animation was my format to create things, to make worlds and stories. So yeah, again, it's sort of a coincidental thing. I've done a couple of bits here and there in other things, like I've done some theatre, and I've done some like I did a TV advertisement. That's like the closest I've ever gotten to directing. And I made an album when I was 18 or 19. It's terrible. Please don't look it up. Yeah, so I've always kind of still done all those other things, but I guess in the end, when you become an adult, you also have to make decisions that are more business-like decisions based on paying bills and such. So it's not like I've made a decision that I wouldn't have enjoyed. Obviously, I love my job, you know. But yeah, I guess it's become the medium that's most viable as a career, really. So
not music.
Not music, no. To make a career out of theatre or music, I have heard and seen people can be a nightmare. So so yourself, one thing that is hugely noticeable in your work is there's a real big versatility in style and the things that you can portray stylistically. Like even on your website, you have your caricatures, your still life pieces, and your paintings. And amongst all the paintings, everything is so viscerally different. You have some really cool, like really smooth pieces, and then you have some really strong silhouetted or painted like pieces. Like, what advice would you give to artists who want to break out of their style or try different things? What's helped you do that?
Mine was just like greed. I just wanted more. Okay, so I started doing, I wanted to be a comic book artist for a while, and then I switched to portraiture, and the reason I switched to portraiture is I had a teacher who told me, all your works are, you have a lot of swords, you have a lot of warriors and dragons and stuff, and it's all about power. What? What do you mean it's all about power? And then I thought about it, and it's like, oh, I know what she means. I just knew she's getting at that I don't feel powerful, therefore I'm drawing things about this. And then when she said it, it was almost like I didn't need to do that anymore. And then I thought, what do I want to do? And I thought, I draw faces a lot when I'm not drawing these other characters. I just draw faces and expressions and emotion. And I realized that I wanted to convey emotions, and I had a lot of sad feelings that I didn't see quite expressed in art. I would see figures of portraits where they're cool and happy, but there's like a handful of sad pieces. There's some by Rembrandt where it's like, okay, you've captured this melancholic feeling. But it was, in my idea, it was a way of communicating to the viewer. Okay, this is what I feel here. And the reason I wanted to do it is just in case there was someone like me who felt really sad but misrepresented. Because where do you look? Where do you find people like yourself? Sometimes you just feel alone. It's like, how do I make it so someone knows that you're not alone? Mm-hmm. And so it was a quest for portraiture. It was this quest of how good do I have to get before I can say what I need to get, what I want to say, what skill I need. And I saw pictures by the artist Bouguereau and Sargent, and I thought, I need that. That's what I need. I need to be able to do like realistic oil paintings, because I looked at acrylic paintings. That didn't have it. That wasn't what I wanted. Mm-hmm. And then the oil paintings were like, great. It's like, okay, so I have this goal now. I want the skill of these people, and what? So it's like, I don't know. I didn't know what to do. So I read lots of books. I read Loomis books. The internet wasn't really a place filled with tutorials at the time. Mm-hmm. And so I would just seek out artists wherever I could. I watched anything, any TV show involving art, I would watch it. I've seen every single Bob Ross episode ever. It was just like I wanted to know things so badly. Mm-hmm. And I started, I saw some private teachers who would each give me something. It's like, okay, this will help. And the first one taught me like a grid pattern, how to copy a photo onto a grid, onto a canvas, and all this stuff. And I was like, I don't want to do this. I want to know how to draw. And so I learned from another artist some years later, and then I was able to do pretty okay paintings that were portraits. And I was looking at the likeness, and it looked pretty good. I could draw what I saw. If you put something in front of me, I could draw it, and it would look pretty close to the original. And then I saw this caricature artist, Jason Seiler, and he did that, but he caricatured it, and the figures looked way more realistic. It's just, I felt, what am I doing? I need that. That's where I need to go. He's captured likeness much better than just a straight up one-for-one copy. So it's like, okay, you want to do caricature. So I ended up taking a course with him and on schoolism. And so I learned caricature. And then there was because caricature and animation kind of go hand in hand. There's a lot of people who do these two things, especially character designers. They really cross this. And so in the class I was in, there was an animator who was taking caricature, and his drawings just blew everyone else's out the water. And I would see this. Animators, when you looked at their drawings, you looked at their gesture, it had life, it had motion. And I was like, I don't have this. I still feel stuck. I still feel like I need more. So then I was afraid of animation because I thought it's really boring and I have no patience and I don't want to do drawings and drawings and drawings. So I thought, okay, I'll go to animation school. And I went to the school. My brother went like a couple years earlier and studied classical animation. And so my thought process was like, fine, I'll try this. I'm afraid of this, but let me do it anyway. And so I studied animation to get the gesture thing. And I didn't really learn it from the school, but I learned it because in the school, they'll say things like, oh, you know, this great artist Glenn Keane did this and that. And then it's like, who's that? So then you research and you find, oh, that's cool. You know, he animated Tarzan. He's responsible for that Disney look that you see in Tangled and things like that. And it's like, okay, so this is great. I want this skill. And so I came out of animation school with that, but with no desire to be an animator. I still didn't really want to be an animator. That didn't appeal to me. But I had this life. And it's like, okay, now I have life and I have caricature and I can, now what? And I realized there's not many jobs out there for someone just trained in caricature. And I started networking and meeting people, and they were all doing trading card games. That was the thing. And so they would look at what I did and like, you have painting skills. You can do this. Why don't you try this? And I thought, well, yeah, sure, I could do this. This is where the people are making money. And so let's try that. And in doing that, I realized, I hate this. This is fine for some people, but I don't know. I never grew up with trading card games. I grew up with comics and then manga and anime, and I was really like the JRPG nerd, not the RPG nerd. I played Dungeons and Dragons a little bit, but after I just became more and more into the JRPG side, and so I felt like I'm not enjoying this, and I started getting some jobs where I was doing comics and for animation studios. It's like, this is more fun. I like this. It's the style I don't care for that much, but the process I like more. And then I started to think, what do I like? I don't know what I like. And I realized, what did I like when I was a kid? And, I like these characters with big swords, and they were cool, and I like anime. And it's like, right. I should do that. I should probably do that. And so in the end, it's like, I looked at my gallery, and I did all these different things from the initial portraiture and at some point, I lost that desire. There's an angst that teenagers have, which is very precious. You should use it while you have it, because it runs out. Eventually, you're just like, I'm kind of okay. I'm kind of happy, and everything's working, and I don't feel all this emotion that I have to get out.
Yeah.
So
that's really cool. It's like I get the impression that a lot of people go from place to place in their artistic development, kind of learning this or that tool, like, I know how to use this program now, I know how to use this brush. But what you're essentially saying is you kind of got to capture ineffable things, like entire sort of genres or styles through, you know what I mean, like the life of Disney or the caricature thing, So that's really quite cool. I can imagine it would be very valuable to have that to apply whenever you need it.
Yeah. So my question to you then is, because I didn't like animating so much, I'm curious, like, okay, when did you start animating? How did you start how did you get into it? And what do you get from it? What is it about animation that's so special to you?
In a very weird, sad way, I don't get that much specifically out of animating. And for someone who kind of does a lot of it, it might sound a bit silly, like it should be this thing that I'm animation obsessed, but I'm character and world obsessed. And this is, again, I feel like I'm overusing it now because I didn't use it, and I need to explain for people who weren't part of our previous conversation. When I was part of a recent stream with Will Terrell and friends, he was asking me what my specific motivation was, and I wasn't able to answer his question at the time, or like his question was what worked for me, and I was kind of jumping around and not really answering his question, and my wife was talking to me after and explaining to me that an answer you could have used was characters and stories, and I was like, I should have used that. Because truly it is what influences everything I do. So in regards to your question and animation specifically, what do I get out of animation? It's not the process at all. I feel the same about the process as I would about doing anything else, whether it be writing a song or drawing a picture. It's the end result that has a different sort of feel to it, because there are limitations that are taken away by being able to add motion that enables you to create even more rich, sometimes, characters and worlds that make it really fun. So when I started animating, I was starting off with stick figures, but all of a sudden I could have a stick figure who was escaping from a mental asylum and going on a killing spree, which, as you say, that teenage youngster was obviously coming out in my work too. But yeah, like that was very interesting and satisfying to me, both in the intermediate points of the creation process, where maybe 10 times in creating animation I could stop, see what I've done so far and be like, wow, that's really cool, and that will motivate me to do the next 10th, and then the end result to be able to say, oh, look, I've finished it, put it out, and then actually forget about it and start the process again, because that became addictive to me. So there you go. I hope that answers your question. Okay, so I have a question for you that's a little more technical, about colour, because colour is something that can be a very two-dimensional thing in artists' minds. It can be very what's in your face, and there are some people too who use colour in a very what's the word? Not metaphysical, but different sort of way, not an illiteral way. I'm not making sense. I guess my question is, how do you think about colour, and what are some things that you use and apply that your mind naturally kind of goes to or draws from as key points when you apply color?
Okay, well, I think there's three main things. One is there's sort of a sciencey approach, which when you draw realism, light falls on an object in a specific way, and you're going to get core shadows in a specific place, and you're going to get reflected light and all this stuff. So that I learned first, and I was able to, you pay attention to values, and colors are less important, and you could have situations with warm light and cool shadows, or cool light and warm shadows, and I saw, I could do this. I could get realistic rendering and colors down. But then there's a guy specifically, Mike Azevedo, and he would do live streams, and he had crazy colors, like greens where you wouldn't expect them, and pinks, and all these weird colors. And I was like, how'd you do that? What is the logic behind that? Because the science thing I can get, you study a lot, you understand, okay, this is this form, and it's this reflective, therefore it's going to react this way. But what he was doing, whenever I'd ask him, how'd you do it? He's like, experiment, just experiment. And I was like, that doesn't answer anything. Experiment what? Experiment? What do you mean by experiment? And I was really lost. How does he handle color so well? And sometimes I would talk to people who have this sense of, color seemed like this ephemeral type of weird thing that some people had it and some people didn't. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, what I could do is, fine, let me just take his word and experiment. And what I'm going to do is just put down colors and then put down other colors and then see if it works. Does that look good? No. Put down this. Does that look good? No. Put down this color. Does that look good? And what happens is really by building so many color schemes, potential color schemes, and being brave. One thing I like to do is I'll put down a color on a different layer and then use a hue saturation sliders in Photoshop. And you're checking all these random colors. I never would have thought to do this, but no, I did. So I colored, for instance, girls' lips as red or sort of pink. And I would put the slider up and down. And then I would go to greens and yellows and oranges. And it's got something. That looks cool. That looks cool. Awesome. So you take that and you put it in. It's okay, I could do this. And then you see other things. It just looks cool. I think that's what helps the most for me is experimenting, just trying it and not being afraid.
I like it. That's good.
All right. My question to you now is, how have you dealt with your rise? For me, I started YouTube in 2006, and it's been very gradual. It's not been this huge jump to... But with you have been sort of meteoric in your ascension to... I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe on new grounds you were already huge, but it did help when I began to have that as a base to begin from, because I had people specifically interested in my animation and in animation who I could lead directly to my YouTube channel. So I think I started off with 3,000 to 5,000-ish subscribers in the first month. In answer to your question, first of all, thank you. You're a little too kind. But I think, interestingly, and I don't want this to sound, what's the word? I don't want it to sound like narcissistic or egotistical or anything, but when I began my YouTube channel, I kind of needed it to do well, because at the time my bread and butter, which was making Flash games, was going downhill, and I was beginning to not be able to make a living from it very soon, and I knew that if I didn't succeed in something else pretty soon, I'd have to drop doing full-time art and animation and pick up something else and do it on the side. And that to me was a pretty desperate point. Fortunately, I'd saved up enough money to pay my mortgage 5 months in advance, but there was 5 months there where I had no income at all. And I also had no money to pay off my house insurance. So if my house burnt down, I would have been screwed. So there was that 5 months and where I'd began my YouTube channel a little earlier than them, but I really needed to make something work. And because it was starting to build, I was starting to get a little bit of a rise that you mentioned. I figure I started to be quite aggressive with it in a very proactive way. So not, aggressive, but I kept a graph where I noted
every month my change in viewership and subscribers. I noted what videos were working and what wasn't. I was very, very, very pro collaboration because I felt other people might benefit from me contributing to their channels, and I would absolutely benefit from their audience being exposed to me. So it was pretty calculated, and I don't want it to sound like I deserved it or expected it, because in reality I'm very fortunate to be in a position where I, can do this. But again, I kind of had to make it work or it wasn't going to work. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, quid pro quo. So in all the things that you've shared with us today, the thing that stands out most to me is a hunger, a very strong hunger to gain what you haven't yet got. And that's a very cool, valuable thing for an artist to have. What I'm also curious about, though, is where do you find your satisfaction? So that hunger that I'm talking about is a dissatisfaction, which is very important for a lot of artists to have, because otherwise we don't progress. Where do you find your sanctum?
At first, I didn't. I just kept jumping from dissatisfaction to the next thing. Like, cool, that's interesting. Let me go there. Now it's very much realizing that I am starting to be able to do work that when I was a kid I would have looked at and thought, oh, it's pretty cool. It's not bad, That is kind of crazy how great that feels, doing something that you yourself would like. And I realized way too late that this is it. This is what you should be doing. You should be doing things for yourself, not so much to please other people, but because it's interesting to you, and just have faith that there's probably enough people like you or who share that interest who would respond positively. And understanding that when you're having fun, that's a reward in itself. You don't need the end result, but it's cool. And it shows.
Cool.
So, does that answer it?
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Okay. So, my question is, I don't know if I want to ask this one or if I should.
That means you should definitely ask it.
I was gonna say, how is it? Okay, so how is married life, and is your partner an artist? And if so, is that, or if not, like, how do you juggle this? How do you deal with life and art? Because artists often get really obsessed into what they do, and it's easy to kind of lose track of the world around you. And so how do you balance this?
I have to vigilantly balance it. It's a calculated thing. So I'm very structured in that 90% of the time I work 9 to 5, 5 days a week, Monday to Friday. And I'm pretty strict about that, because when I limit my time, I also have to do more with it. So I find I'm structuring things, projects in certain days, time allotments and all that stuff. So when I force myself to be organized, I can get A, a lot done, and B, to a better quality, and at the same time I also have a life after. But there have been periods of time, particularly when I haven't had much happening in my personal life, where I wouldn't prioritize a personal life or social life, and I would just work all day, finish work for the day around, 7 p.m. and be like, oh, okay, I'm done for the day, and then do something else that's almost exactly the same. So like I'd animate all day, be like, oh, I'm finished work for the day, and then just paint a picture until like 1 a.m, So it can definitely, like you say, be easy to lose track of the world around you when you're an artist, and it's almost our escapism. So in answer to your question, it's a decision. It's kind of like making sure you understand that there is a reality outside of the world that we create, and prioritizing that. And at the same time, in terms of balancing it with my wife, I actually met her doing something creative. You asked if she's an artist. We met on stage. So she was Fontaine dying in bed in Les Mis, and I was a backstage helping hand because I was curious about the theatre and wanted to kind of start off in it. And this was when I started to do something in my spare time. And the next year, she choreographed a show that I auditioned for, which was my first ever show, and they actually gave me the lead, and I was Sky Masterson in Guys and Dolls. And so the year after that was Carmen the musical, where she played Carmen and I played Don Jose, so we were actually romantic opposite leads. And then the year after that was Joseph, where I was Joseph and she was the narrator. So through those several years, we became very, very close friends. And then at the very end of all that, after Joseph, we became very close and romantic, and then we dated, and then I proposed, and then we're married. So we dated and kind of met through artistic endeavors, but in a way it's good for me that she's not an artist in the visual artist sort of spectrum that we're in, because I guess there is an element of our psyche that's a little competitive, or a little we judge ourselves based on other people. So I'm lucky, I think, in the sense that she understands what I do, but she also can kind of give me insight on things in art or in a business perspective that I wouldn't necessarily consider, but I don't feel threatened by because she doesn't do what I do. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense.
Cool. Okay, so what would you have to say, or what advice would you have to give to people who want to work professionally as an artist? And that can either be things to avoid or specific things to keep in mind and look for and work towards. Because being a working artist, as in someone who moves from it being a hobby to someone who can actually pay their bills, they're very different things, and it can be a big jump from one to the other.
Right. I don't know. I don't know if I'm, like, I get asked this a lot in terms of how to get into the professional field and how to, get into schools and things. And I would have to say I'm starting to feel more and more uncomfortable because I'm not part of the industry anymore. I do freelance work from time to time. And then I have YouTube, and then I have other smaller things that I do. And for me, it's been about finding out what life I really want and what do I really want to be doing. Because I've seen people get into this thing of wanting so desperately, first of all, they like art. And then from there, it gets to okay, what makes money in art? And those are two very different things. And then from there, there's like in school, for instance, in the beginning, when I started animation school, a lot of people wanted to be directors. A lot of people wanted to be key animators and stuff. And then by the end, after the school was over and people were looking for jobs, it's like, please just let me do some rigging, let me do some, flash models. And it was kind of sad to see that, it stopped being about what their dream was, and it started being about, I need the job, just give me the job. And for me, I realized, like, what do you really want to do? And then how much do you need to earn to do that thing? And for me, I realized I don't need that much, because art is its own reward for me. So, some people, they need the fancy car, they need the nice house, I don't care that much. I would, like, hey, if I get to do my own stuff, and as long as I'm just getting by, I'm cool with that. So, I don't know if I'm the right person to answer any questions of.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I agree with your, and it's an interesting perspective, given that when you say you're not part of the industry, you also have been part of the industry, and that's a valuable perspective to have gained. Because I personally actually have never worked for anyone. I worked at like Target for a year and hated that. So I've been a bit selfish in the fact that I've just kind of refused to do anything but what I wanted. So it's at least interesting to have learned the lessons you've learned and be able to have that perspective, whether you liked being a part of that or not,
Yeah. Okay. So my question to you is, I guess since you were a child, have you ever felt this thing about, like, destiny? You're destined to do something. You're destined to be someone, or that you're somehow special, or it ties into this target thing. Like, why is it that you can't do a job that other people would be fine in, but instead you have to be something else?
Mm-hmm. That's an interesting question, and I absolutely had that feeling, especially when I was younger. But what's interesting is that the more I develop in time, the less that's the case. And when I began, I wonder too, in hindsight, if the fact that I was quite religious had much to do with me feeling like I had a special destiny or whatever. But I'm also a romantic in my head, and everyone is the protagonist in our own stories, you know? So, yes, I kind of had destiny in my head, and it didn't necessarily dissuade me from that opinion when you're kind of part of a small town and people say things to you like, you're going to be so famous one day, or remember to take me to the Oscars, or, you know, remember the little guy when you're a big guy, you know. So, like, I think that sort of assisted in warping my perspective when I was younger and thinking, yeah, I have a destiny. I'm going to be huge, you know. But what's interesting is over the last 10 years in particular, that's kind of been systematically broken down. And now I'm in the position where I am very blatantly aware of my insignificance in a way that probably isn't even true. I don't want that to sound depressing, but I also feel kind of liberated in that sense. I feel like I'm enabled to look at other people other than myself and learn from them and open up myself in ways that I probably wouldn't have been open to in the past. I think that development and change, there have been a few things in particular that have assisted in that. One thing that helped me with a perspective was around the age of 16 or 17, I was animating this series called the Paladin series that was beginning to be quite popular. And I started to get a really big head. And by the time I finished the series, I made like this DVD that I was like, oh, you know, I was in the special features of the DVD, I was talking like I was top shit. And I released the DVD and sold like 3 copies, and then went away and did missionary work for my church for 10 months. When I came back, it was like I never existed. And I was like, oh, I guess I wasn't that important. You know what I mean? The world moved on without me. I used to visit my high school art teachers after I left high school, and you come back and it's like high school moves on and keeps going without you there. And it's like you realize, like over time, slowly, I became very aware that were I not here, people would just do their thing. And I think too, that became a very harsh reality when my best friend from high school died in a car crash, and I learned that I heard a lot and a lot of people heard a lot, but also in time they wouldn't, and a lot of people at that moment didn't hurt a lot. So there were a lot of different lessons in the stages that helped me realize that the world is a very, very big place, and there are so many artists that are better or worse, but what ties everyone together is the motivation and the drive, you know, that helps us improve and make things, and that can be a really unifying thing. And if we can focus on that, you know, and like be part of building each other up rather than using art to build ourselves up and make ourselves feel or look better than someone else, the entire experience can just be morphed into something really positive. So there you go, that's my magical answer. We should probably wrap it up soon because you do have places to go and people to be or whatever. But let's ask a few quickies. Let's just shoot back and forth just a little bit, shall we? So let's just try and keep it like a 1-sentence answer and just try and challenge each other a bit here.
Okay.
What has been your most successful artwork?
Caricature I did of some girl that's on my website. Okay, so if you why do you like Dungeons and Dragons?
Ooh, same answer as before, worlds and stories, and again it's that theatrical streak in me. I like being it's escapism, really, you know, the idea of being another character and imagining yourself in a completely different world. It's very, very nerdy, but I freaking love it, so and I always have, you know. Okay. What inspires you visually? Like when you look at it, it could be a certain artist's work, it could be a certain thing or place, but what do you often find yourself going back to whet your inspirational appetite?
Kim Jung-gi. I've said it a million times, but he's just my favorite artist. He does so many different things. Every time I figure like, okay, so he does this and he does something completely different, and I really like looking through his sketchbooks. I don't know if that was 1 sentence, but that's anyway. All right. Do you prefer Western or Eastern animation, and why?
Western. hard to explain. It's kind of untouchable. I think it's because my childhood was so filled with Western animation, and that's what I fell in love with. There are some Eastern animes and things that I quite like, but nothing's really captured me in the same way that, Treasure Planet or other Disney movies and things. So, okay, if you were unable to do what you are doing artistically, what would you do instead?
Okay, so does writing count? Or writing or music? Cool. One of those two. Okay, my question to you is, how does theater and acting experience help you make better characters?
I have to think about that. How does fear... you mean like being on stage, being exposed?
Well, I said theater, but fear is better.
I didn't hear,
no, that's better. That's better. I come looking much smart.
I'll reconsider that. Sorry.
How does
fear make me better? Theater and being on stage. I don't necessarily think it affects how I make characters, but I do think it affects how I approach a work or an audience. I think it helps you take fear or a lack of confidence and turn that into, because it's energy, just transferring that kind of energy into something else and using it as a means of pushing what you're doing. And it takes kind of, I guess, learning to, like, when you're on stage and you're about to deliver lines, you know that you're already on stage and you're going to deliver those lines whether you're scared or not. So you might as well be a little fearless and just, do more than you feel comfortable and push yourself, because then in the end, you'll at least have done it with a little passion. Because everyone's seen people on stage who are kind of half there and they're just not fun to watch, So, yeah, I guess that's it's just that idea that you got to give it the whole 100% whether you feel like it's going to turn out good or not. So we should wrap up soon, but my final question to you is, where do you see yourself going in the future? And it may be hugely ambitious or it may be really sentimental and personal, but what do you want to be SYCRA 10 years from now, 20 years from now?
I would like to finish a graphic novel that I have the story. It's not done, but I'm working on it, and I would like it to be somewhat successful. And then I would like for my style thing to be developed, so someone can look at it and be, yeah, he did it. He wanted this cool style, and he got it. That's pretty much it.
Awesome. That's cool. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. For those of you who aren't aware, the last time I chatted with SYCRA was in a hangout with him and some of his friends in the stream, and I happened to have booked in my air conditioner being installed that day, so I wasn't really able to be a part of the conversation because all you could hear in the background was... So, yeah, that was awkward, but I really appreciate you taking the time to join me today, and it's been really enjoyable. I'm sure my viewers love hearing it. So
it was cool. It's very different. Never had an interview like it. So
good. I hope that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's very good.
You can make sure to check out SYCRA's artwork and YouTube channel by checking out the links in the description. He's amazing. I highly recommend going and checking out his stuff. So thanks for joining me, and until next time,
I'll see you later.
There we go. Perfect, you nailed it. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to my channel to see new content every week. Check out more of my stuff by clicking the annotations over there. If you want to support my work and get a few goodies for yourself, head over to my store for archives, ebooks, and get yourself something nice. If you're looking for a great place to collaborate, explore, or share your own content, head over to newgrounds.com. That's it for now, and until next time, see you later.